evening, everybody. Sanibonani. Goedenavond. Sure, you can see my Afrikaans is not that great. How is everybody this wonderful Thursday evening? I'm so pleased to be your host. Welcome to each and every single one of you. My name is Vaylen Kirtley. So there's a very good reason why we're here at the Leonardo this evening. It's because last year it became the tallest building in Africa, 55 floors at a cost of 2 billion rand. And tonight we're speaking about a company that is energetic, that is ambitious, and that is passionate. There's also a very good reason why they got a lady that knows a lot more about sport than financial services and the guest speaker, Duminy, to come and bring you tonight's launch. And that's because when it comes to delivering what BDO Financial Services has been able to deliver over just the last 18 months, it hasn't been possible without teamwork and good team ethic. And those are key sporting principles. So when you think about sporting principles, you have to think about how you go from grassroots development right up to elite professionals, which JP will know a lot more about. But it isn't possible without grassroots development. But when it comes to developing people and people for the financial services, that grassroots development is the home. So a very special word of welcome to the families of our BDO managers that have joined us this evening. Thank you for giving us your wonderful sons and daughters, to the BDO friends, and then of course a special word of welcome to representatives of various financial service regulators, chairpersons of boards, chairperson of audit committees, and senior executives of a number of corporations. So let's all give them a big round of applause, please. Welcome to each and every single one of you. I just want to go through a couple of house rules, some that you may have already found yourself for the smokers. There is a designated smoking area if you just go out to the right, close to where the toilets are, so out to the right too. There's a special request for your parking tickets. If you can please give it to the hotel desk, which is just opposite the bar. You won't miss it. You know where the bar is? Just turn around, the hotel desk there. That's where you get your parking tickets validated. Also, if you can please put your phones onto silent. We all know we can't live without them, but if you could just be respectful to everybody that will be coming up onto stage to speak to us. We've got a number of speakers to get through, but when I thought about when I was asked to actually MC this function, and I sat down with Pierre, who heads up the financial services business at BDO, he was speaking with so much passion. And I said, are you going to be wearing a black turtleneck? Because he was speaking about innovation, he was speaking with energy, and Steve Jobs jumped to mind. And I thought that the best way to set the tone for this evening for a company that has got great ambitions, I thought I would take a leaf out of Steve Jobs' book. And it is something that I'm sure many of you have come across before, and it's a part of the commencement speech that Steve Jobs gave at Stanford University back in 2005. And he said, here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs and square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of the rules. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify them, and vilify them. But the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius, because the ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are generally the ones that can. We're in for a lovely evening, and thank you so much for being with us here at the BDO Financial Services launch. Let's put our hands together for the CEO of BDO. He's a man that's been with the company for 29 years, and he's been the CEO for the last 6. He also believes in teamwork. When I was speaking to him, he's passionate about golf, cycling, and running, so we found a common thread in road running. He believes so much in teamwork that when I said, have you done a comrades? He says, no, but I count my wife's 8 as my own. Mark Stewart.
Good evening, everybody. What a wonderful event it is to host tonight, and thank you very much for coming to the centre of Sandton, risking a big crowd where we all know people are trying to avoid them. It's not often that accountants get excited about things that happen in their workplace, but the event tonight that we celebrate, launching our financial services team, is really worthy of a celebration. And I'm really pleased that so many of you can be here to join in with us. Just a little bit of history about our firm. Our global firm comprises about 88,000 people around the world, $10 billion of turnover per annum, represented in 160-odd countries. And over the last 7 or 8 years, the global firm has been pushing us fairly hard in South Africa in order to grow our brand and to become more relevant in the market that we serve. I'm very pleased to say over the last 2 to 3 years that we've been able to achieve significant growth, largely as a result of mergers that have taken place in Johannesburg, Cape Town, Port Elizabeth. And as of the 1st of April, there'll be a further merger which will take our staff complement to about 1,600 in this country. So the growth that has occurred has really followed BDO's global strategy of becoming more relevant to our markets. The scale of our firm has also allowed us to invest people with deep skills and lots of experience, to introduce new services such as the financial services offering that we now have, to make greater use of technology, which we will demonstrate a little later on, and to ensure continuous quality improvement. Our financial services offering in the past was mainly limited to the insurance sector. And the highly regulated environment of financial services required us to exercise caution in developing the service offering. We're, of course, very grateful to our clients, to the Prudential Authority, and to the stakeholders in the financial services sector for the encouragement and support they have given us over the last 18 months. The team that we have attracted are all skilled and experienced individuals who've already made their mark on our global firm. We've representation on BDO's Financial Services Board, and several of the centres of excellence that exist throughout the globe have South African representation. We look forward to the continued contribution by our team to our global growth. As with most cases, South Africans tend to punch a bit above their weight, and this team is no exception. An investment of this nature comes at considerable cost, and here I wish to thank our partners for their support. I'm convinced that this team will make a big difference in the market, and I look forward to their continued growth in serving this important part of our economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. They say that if you want to go fast, go alone. It's a great African proverb. Many of you will know it. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with others, go with a team. And that's certainly something that our next speaker, Pierre Jacobs, believes in. He heads up the financial services at BDO. A little bit about Pierre. He is national head of BDO Financial Services. I mentioned Mark's comrades. He's got 8. Okay. Any comrades? Pierre? No.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, not yet. When you're not working too hard, then you're going to notch those up. So Pierre has over 23 years of experience, and he started his career at a Big Four audit firm in South Africa before moving to the UK, where he spent 7 years in the London office carrying out work. He's since returned and made a huge impact here at home, and he's performed audit and advisory work in other financial service sectors such as unsecured lending, corporate banking, asset management, corporate treasuries, and credit. Please, can we give Pierre Jacobs a big round of applause?
Thank you, Vaylen. I just have to correct you on one matter. To all the regulators, we are not troublemakers. I just have to put that out there. Very important. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, what a day to be talking to you, where the financial markets are in complete turmoil and there's carnage everywhere due to COVID-19, and then a couple of oil producers having a spat. Just to give you some perspective on that, I don't know whether you know what the VIX is. It's the volatility index. Now, we're not going to get technical here, but what the VIX is, it gives you the estimation of movement in share price or an index in the near term. The VIX is currently sitting at 62%. In normal trading conditions, it will be around about the 30% mark. At the height of the financial crisis, 2008, 2009, it was jumping around in the high 40s and the low 50s. We're sitting currently at 62. It's also called the fear index. I'm not going to say anything more at this point in time. There's always two sides to a story, right? So considering where we are currently, if you are an asset manager, an insurer, a retail banker, or a corporate banker, you're probably going to head for the bar very shortly. Because the equity prices are down, performances are being eroded or decimated in fact, and the credit risk is probably going to go through the roof. But however, on the other side, the only people with smiles on their faces currently are the investment bankers, because they trade volatility and that's when they make money. The more the volatility, the more money they can make. So two sides to every story always, isn't there? So I'm going to tell you a bit about BDO Financial Services tonight. Mark spoke about the firm globally as well as locally. There's no PowerPoint, death by PowerPoint, no slides. I'm going to talk about two things in principle. One is our team, the people, and secondly about innovation. So if we start with our team, we look at skills and experience, we look at the size of our team and where we're going, we look at transformation, and we look at our culture. So let's first start with skills and experience. It is, I can assure you, a highly skilled team. We cover the sectors: banking, insurance, funds administration, asset management. We've got skills across all those sectors. If we look at our size, I just want to come back to one thing, maybe IFRS 9, just a little bit on technicality and the team, and a warning that you woke up to on Monday morning is probably now outdated. So you're going to need people to help you with that. Because, one, your forward-looking information needs to be re-looked at as a matter of urgency. Are you still, and can you still rely on the inputs, the data of the recent past that goes into your credit model to determine the credit risk? It might have changed this week. So we're only a phone call away to help. And for my audit clients, you're going to have some tough questions to answer the next 2 weeks when we come to interrogate you on that specific principle. Let's look at our size. When we started, myself and Lance, September, where is Lance? He always Cape Townian, right at the back, my goodness gracious. We were asked to build a specialist financial services division for BDO, and we started on 2 April last year. Our first target was to, by February 2020, have 100 people in the specialist division. We have exceeded the target by 11%. We are currently 111 people in BDO Financial Services. If we look at the future, the plan is to be, by February 2021, 220 people within financial services, and the year thereafter, 2022, 340. Now, is that achievable? If you think about it, if we employ 80 new trainees next year and 100 the year thereafter, it's very much achievable. You promote a couple of people, you've got a couple of external hires to the tune of 15, it's very achievable. So that's where we're going. We're absolutely here to disrupt and rival the Big Four, make no mistake about that. And we're very clear on how we're going to get there. This is not a pipe dream. What that will do, in 2 years' time, when we have a capacity with an FS of 340, we can audit a major banking group in Johannesburg, we can audit a major insurer down in Cape Town, and still have 100 spare capacity. So that's our aim, and that's where we're going with our team. Transformation, currently we're 57% black, 43% white within the team. And if you look at diversity, we have 54% men and 46% women. We've got too many women, but we'll work on that. Now, in all seriousness, there are two anomalies in those numbers, and we're very aware of that. The first one is on transformation. If you look at the partner level, you look at the associate director level, it's a 70-30 split, white. So that's not ideal. We fully understand that as part of building this business, that we had to start somewhere. It was critically important to me and Lance to get the right skill and the right people through the door, and we can build from there. If you look at our current manager base, the majority are non-white. What I can tell you, that every single one of those I will promote at any point in time on pure merit. Absolutely. Now, tomorrow morning, do not ask me about those promotions. If we look at the female-male ratio, the issue there is if you take technology out of the equation, we've got more female than males in the division. For some reason, women have just not latched onto technology just yet. So that ratio is 70-30 again in favor of men. But this year, our intake was 50-50. And if you look at that, that's way different and better than what the varsities push out at this point in time. Our culture, just two things quickly, because my time's running out, sure. There are two different things that we do. One is decision making is done by everybody. We do not believe in partners make the decisions and the rest of the division needs to do as they're told. So our managers are fully integrated in our decision making as well as our remuneration. So that is a big change for a professional services firm where the managers share directly in the profits and financial services. So it works for us, and that is certainly my view of what the future should look like. Innovation. Let's talk a bit about innovation. Nevellan and his team, there's a video, there's a couple of interesting things you're going to see later, so I'm not going to steal their thunder. There are a couple of firms in South Africa with well-oiled machines when it comes to selling. So they're going to tell all the innovation they're doing. Then they do the audit and they come to the client and say, oh, can we see the loan documentation? We're going to do 125 samples. And the client's like, but you told me about technology and not so many samples. Oh, no, you have to ask the partner. Partner's like, no, almost there, next year, it's all technology, no samples. We actually, and I believe we are walking the talk, we're actually doing that, and you'll see in the videos, and Neville will have one or two examples to show you a little later as well. Our intake is a third tech, 2/3 traditional auditors. My view is next year that ratio will move to 50-50. So the teams that will come out to audit you will be 50% technology and 50% traditional auditors. We've done exercises, we've done the calcs. In certain instances, you look at cradle to grave of a system, 86% of the controls are audited by technology, configurations that needs to be tested. So there's a definite swing, and we embrace that and fully believe that that's the way to go. Ecosystem, that's another thing we're doing. And in particular, if you look at actuarial skills, credit modeling skills, and tech skills. Some people are not fit for a professional services firm, right? They like to wear earrings, they hate ties, they dress differently, they don't want to be in the confines of a highly regulated environment. So we can pull the deep skill in, and our clients have enjoyed and told us that it's really different to talk to a different level of skill in the professional services firm than what they're probably used to. So that ecosystem is important to us. We're building on that. We've got an excess of 10 service providers that we use in this way. The important thing is that we, as BDO Financial Services, the partners and the managers, we control the relationship, the quality, and the independence. That firmly remains our responsibility, and we will most certainly honor that. Last thing is with regards to team, is if you look at our technical accounting as well as our regulatory and compliance, they do not sit outside. They are not faceless people behind a computer that's going to send you a technical accounting opinion or issues on your reg reports that you don't understand. It's critical for me that it's face-to-face, that they come sit with you. They sit, first of all, with the audit team to understand the business, to understand the issues, and then sit with the client. Because you've got to take very complex theory, and you've got practicalities on the other side. And let me tell you now, the people in London who write these standards do not always write it for financial services, right? They just don't. So you've got to have a sensible way of bringing that theory and the practical sessions together in a sensible way. And therefore, we fully endorse that they sit within financial services, within our team, and the service is rendered from there. And likewise with our regulatory and compliance division, it's very much the same. So 350 years worth of financial services experience in the 44 partners and managers that we do have within our firm in financial services. That's a lot. We had a meeting with the PA, the Reserve Bank, the other day. There were 8 of my colleagues, including myself, in the room. The banking experience in years in that room was 112 years. 112 years for the 8 people there. Now, admittedly, John Martin pushes up a little with his 38 years of banking experience, but that's the kind of skill and experience that we will offer you and that we will bring to the table. So this is a big milestone night for us as BDO Financial Services, a really big night for us. I am extremely proud of my team. Very, very proud. And not the skill and not the experience. That's not the issue for me. But as people, as leaders, as role models, the soft skills that they bring to the table, their work ethic, and their ambition. That stands out. That makes them unique. That makes them special. And I tell you, I am very, very proud of them. It's a bit maybe over the top, but I'll go to war with that team. I'll go to war with them. So lastly, thank you all. Thank you very much for coming out tonight to share in our special night. Thank you very much.
Hard taskmaster. It's usually those people, they say very nice things, but then you know how hard they make their team actually work. Is that what's going on right there, Pierre? Yes, I do think so. It's clear from the world that we live in, the world that we wake up each and every single day, that every single part of our lives is disrupted by digitization, and every single sector in the country is coming to grips with how things are actually changing. Our next speaker is somebody just like BDO that's embracing this new world that we're moving into in a responsible manner. Yes, innovating, but responsibly. Our next speaker is somebody that saw the opportunity at what was happening in the fintech space, and she resigned from the position that she was in 2017, and she went to go and work on decentralized blockchain solutions. I want to tell you a little bit about Monica Singer. She's a board member of the Accounting Blockchain Coalition, which is defining practices in accounting, auditing, and tax for digital assets and distributed ledger technologies, including blockchain. So while most of us are still trying to get to grips with exactly how this works and how we can buy things with something that we can't really draw from the ATM, she's making sure that that is regulated and that there is regulations in place. She's board member of the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, patron of the Corporate Governance Framework Research Institute in South Africa. She's a board member of the Global Legal Identifier Foundation based in Switzerland, and then she's also a professor of practice at the University of Johannesburg for accounting. So please can we give Monica Singer a big round of applause.
So you have to wonder how I managed to get invited to this incredible occasion. So first of all, thank you very much. I've got 15 minutes. I was told that I had to tell my story. It's really a long story, and you could see from my accent that I'm not really born in South Africa, although I've been here for 38 years. And I really, in my soul, I really am South Africa, and I'm going nowhere. So I was born in Uruguay, and when I was very young, I ran away from home. And I ran away with my boyfriend to South Africa, okay? And I came to this country at a time that clearly, I felt that I had been punished for what I did because I came to South Africa right in the middle of apartheid. But in my life, every time that life throws lemons, I make lemonade. So my passion has always been that one day I always knew when I was very young, actually, that I wanted to be a chartered accountant. So when I came to South Africa, I was very lucky that in the 80s, you could study part-time and you could work during the day. So I could afford to pay for surviving and still become a chartered accountant. So my English was terrible, and I had to learn English very fast, but it all went very well. And then eventually, when I finished my degree, I decided to go and work for the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants to set the audit and accounting standards for the profession, because I felt that the standards were imperative for the good standing of the profession in the world. And that's why, if you look at the evolution of the World Economic Forum categories of South Africa, we were always categorized as the best in terms of auditing and accounting standards. And I think that I had something to do with that. Then I went to work for the World Bank for a while. And then I came back, and then I was told that I should be running a project to transform the financial markets. For those that are my age, you will remember that when you traded on the stock exchange, you were given a share certificate, a piece of paper, and you paid with checks. And they asked me to digitize the financial markets. The truth be told, that as chartered accountants, we don't know much about financial markets, let's be honest. But I think that that was the key for me to transform the financial markets. Because every time that a broker will come and say, we've been doing this for 100 years, I would say, well, I don't care, whatever you're doing is not working, and we're going to make it different. So we did transform the financial markets to the extent that we, from the worst emerging market in the world, we became one of the top 10 financial markets in the world. So I created a company called Strate, S-T-R-A-T-E, which is the Central Securities Depository in South Africa. And I ran it for 20 years. And everything we did was absolutely the best that we could actually imagine that should be done in South Africa. And that's why we were categorized as the top financial market in the world. And that's why when the crisis came in 2008, our stock exchange did not close down, when many were closing down, like we see in this week. The circuit breakers at the New York Stock Exchange had to be applied because of the crisis that is happening as we speak. We didn't have anything of that kind because the measures of risk management we had implemented were good enough to withstand all this fear that was gripping the world in 2008. But the truth be told, running the CST for 20 years, there were many things we couldn't achieve. We couldn't achieve real-time settlement. We couldn't achieve total transparency for the investors and the issuers. We couldn't eliminate the intermediaries because we had to comply with all the requirements of all these people that wanted to have a piece of the pie. And that's why, in reality, in South Africa, out of the 50-something million people, there's only close to, not more than actually, 2 million people that invest directly in the stock market. So one day, in 2015, I read Satoshi Nakamoto's paper. I want to see how many people in this audience have read Satoshi's paper, the white paper. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, guys, tonight you will download Satoshi's paper. I'm not kidding. It's the beginning of the end of everything. The paper explains how the world that we created, especially accountants, we created a world where we trusted central authorities. We trusted intermediaries. We trusted auditors, accountants, regulators, the stock market, brokers, custodian banks. We trusted. And what happened? In 2008, our trust was destroyed. And that's why, as you know, the kids, the millennials, had this incredible revolt to say, we will occupy Wall Street because you guys are pathetic. Look at the world you gave us. So Satoshi comes out with a paper, and Satoshi is a pseudonymous. It's a paper that says, never again are we going to place the trust on people. We're going to place the trust in technology. We're going to decentralize the records. We're going to create an environment where the ledger doesn't get recorded in the books of the buyer, the seller, independent from each other, and then requires an auditor to come and check what has been done a year later. And then everybody presents books for the shareholders, books for the taxman, books for internal requirements. What if we do one set of books where all the parties, we call them actors, all the parties of the transaction are seeing the same entries at the same time? The auditor gets a real-time ledger, real-time. Everything happens so fast and so real time in a ledger that is called an immutable record. Nobody can change. It's not an Excel spreadsheet you can change. Once the record is done, you cannot change it. So imagine that in future, your audits will be done real time. So you will use artificial intelligence to plug into the information you're getting, just to give you the planning, the information, all the things that you need to look at. But you're going to be part of this ledger that is created real time. So can you see how our education already is not preparing us for this? Can you see how you have even failed to read the most important paper that should be read immediately? And I bet you that most of you have never bought any cryptocurrency. Why is it so important that I want you to experience buying cryptocurrency? Because when you download an app, and you can sit in the toilet when you board at 3 o'clock in the morning, and with this finger on a Sunday, you can press a button, and in 5 seconds, you can buy, you can sell, you can transfer whatever currency you want, cryptocurrency, anywhere in the world. Then, and you didn't find an intermediary, and you didn't care about opening hours of banks or the stock market, and you don't care about anything, and you manage your own wallet. Then you start saying, but if this is possible for crypto, is this possible for cash? Is this possible for shares, bonds, money market instruments? Do you know that we are in the process? The one thing you didn't say, I work for the biggest company in the world, blockchain company in the world. I want you to Google our company. It's called Consensys. This company is changing the world of finance as we speak. We are implementing solutions around the world that will tokenize. I'm sure you haven't heard the word tokenize. Tokenize is like the ABC of blockchain. Tokenize means that we are reflecting in a digital record every single asset. So in future, you'll be able to buy a fraction of a token. What do I mean? Let's assume I'm now tokenizing art. So in future, I'll have a portfolio of 10% of the Mona Lisa, or 50% of a Rembrandt, or I will tokenize real estate. I will be able to buy 1% of the Burj Khalifa and trade it for the 1% of the Mona Lisa, because the tokens would be interchangeable. So just imagine that this will be done by your little finger with an app, sitting in your toilet at night without having to talk to anybody. It is the most amazing experience. That's why I want you to experience this. Just buy 100 Rand of crypto. It's not the quantity. It's the experience of what's possible. And that's the world that you are ignoring. And that's why I'm celebrating that BDO is now forming an alliance with these kids. These are millennials that the only thing they know is how to program. Then you're going to hear about terms like called smart contracts. Smart contracts is no more you're going to have a lawyer writing a contract and writing. Everything will be programmed in the computer. It will be done without debate, because a smart contract is just an application that says, if this happens, therefore that happens. Therefore, can you see how everything will happen very fast, very simplified, but at the same time, it's going to require a higher level of consciousness for us as auditors and accountants to help our clients cope with this machine that it will start churning out all this information very, very fast, and it will require us to help them, educate them, and have different types of controls to ensure that people do not get abused, because, as we heard many, many times, if we do not learn how to cope with the machines that are coming, there's going to be a separation in people between the zombies and the non-zombies. And therefore, we need to avoid becoming part of the zombie revolution. And that's why I always say to everybody, I said, guys, especially my children, stop looking at social media. Use that time to learn. You know, if you ask me, how did I become from a chartered accountant to the CEO straight to the blockchain expert in the world? Because I am obsessed about learning and reading. And you know the most beautiful thing? Everything is in the internet. Everything. So if you want to learn, everything I have learned in the last, I would say, 4 years is by absolutely being disciplined to learn yourself everything that is in the internet. So I really recommend that you look at Satoshi Nakamoto's paper, that you practice buying and selling crypto, because you're going to be able to buy and sell every single stock, every single instrument in the future, no matter where in the world you are. You're going to be able to swap this. The regulation is coming. The central bank in South Africa is currently working on a project. It's called the Central Bank Digital Currency. I am absolutely passionate about this project. It will change the lives of citizens in the world. And when we eliminate the use of cash, people's life will totally change. I don't know if you heard that, for example, in Hong Kong, the government gave all the citizens money because they were stuck in their houses. That is called helicopter money. Imagine if you now have an electronic wallet that immediately the central bank can give you that helicopter money at a moment's notice, plus the fact that you will then have control over your own assets, your own identity, your own medical records, and never again would you have to share this information with companies like Facebook that abuse your data because you think that you're using this for free when you actually are the product. So the world is changing very fast. So my first advice is to rely on people like Nevellan, that he really gets it, and many of the kids. I call them kids because they're my children's age, and they get it naturally. And therefore, I would say that we should learn more from them and talk less and learn and ask more. And let our kids teach us what they are understanding is the new world order. And for us to carry on learning and practicing and sharing and forming communities of practice and get the experience, because this is all experiential more than theoretical. So finally, I just want to say that the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. And if you say, you know, how did you survive all this? And I could write a book about all the things that I have survived. And I have survived because the one thing I've got is an incredible ability to adapt, an incredible resilience, an incredible ability not to ever feel a victim. So I see the future with incredible opportunities, especially in South Africa. Even though people are so negative and whatever, I just see incredible potential because we in South Africa, we make a plan. We don't cry, we don't complain, we just get on with it. And that's why I am part of this beautiful nation, that I relate to it so absolutely wonderful. And then I want to say thank you to BDO and well done in this initiative. It will change everything. You don't realize the decision you've taken, the decision to join forces between the techies and the auditors. I even have to tell you, I used to be so well respected as a chartered accountant. At Consensys, I don't even tell them I'm a chartered accountant, you know. They call me analog. And I really try to look like a digital person, but it doesn't really come across. So what I'm trying to say is that it's in the consortium of the millenniums with all of us that we're going to be able to create and survive in the new world order. So thank you very much for having me.
Monica Analog Singer, thank you so much. That's absolutely incredible to get that kind of insight, that kind of honesty, and I think that's something that each and every single one of our speakers have come up here this evening. There's a genuine interest to be honest, to be forthright, to really get everybody on board, to share in their vision. So BDO and its financial services business are disruptors in the most responsible way, and we can see how they're using innovation. But to tell us a little bit more, please can we welcome onto stage Nevellan Moodley. You saw him on the video. He is a partner and head of the financial services technical team and technology team.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me this evening. Sorry, just hold on a second. So that's the drone. It's just fed me the data. So do you want to know the insights on the crowd in front of us tonight? Do you want to know? So, using a banking algorithm, only 80% of you is the New World Order bank willing to lend money to you. But the most interesting stat is 25% of you, this bank does not want to lend money to. And the most scary statistic, 5% of you in the crowd are insolvent already. Guys, welcome to the new world order. This technology seems very far away, but it really isn't that far away. It's dawning upon us as we speak. I'm so glad to hear what Monica had to say. And at BDO, Pierre always tells us, we want to make technology real for you and real in everything that you do. So it's all nice that we had a drone fly through here today, but we have actually used drones in the work that we've done already. So can you imagine a bank of the future offering agricultural finance with drones in the sky and meters in the ground telling you what the credit risk of a crop that you are building is potentially going to yield? This is the new world that we are living in at the moment. It is changing exponentially. These exponential technologies means that we as auditors need to be able to change very, very quickly. So let me show you how we've made drone technology real on an audit. And for those auditors in the crowd who've been auditors for maybe the last 10 years, or maybe an auditor 20 or 30 years ago, we've used it in a very simple example outside of financial services as a start, because we are responsible, and we will only touch the financial services industry once we have learnt and advised more on the technologies. But I'm just going to show you something very quickly.
Take off.
So this is a drone. It's effectively doing a stock count of sheep on a farm that has over 32,000 sheep. I can tell you the old school method of counting these were auditors running around trying to figure out who all the sheep were. And I'm sure you would agree with me the technology is a far better solution. And the image that's being focused in on at the moment was actually machine learning being used by a system that automatically counted the number of sheep that were in a specific kraal. The end result of this was that we were able to perform 100% stock count of sheep, right? And for those of the people out there, I know I've got quite a few of the cybersecurity professionals out there, going forward, from a financial reporting perspective, if a hacker had to hack the drone and change the data that was coming through, it would materially misstate your financial statements. Now, find me an auditor that can audit a drone. And that is what we are doing. Technology is becoming exponential. It is changing so fast. We cannot wait for 10 to 15 years for our textbooks to be updated to cater for these risks. We need people who understand risk and understand technology to advise our clients on how to adopt these technologies in a way that is responsible and where the risks are adequately managed. Us at BDO, we are specializing in helping our clients embrace emerging technology, understand the risks, as well as audit in environments that have these emerging technologies in order to remain relevant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nevellan. I want to know, when you did your high schools, did you have to actually go and physically count them and have... Unfortunately, yes. So it was a very personal thing that you went and said, you know what, we are doing this with the drone next time. There was a lot of personal motivation there. I could feel it coming out. Thank you very much. Very exciting where BDO is hoping to take their financial services business. But how does that work when it comes to the authorities? Well, our next speaker is going to give us a little bit more insight. Lushendran Patha is Divisional Head of Bank Supervision at the Prudential Authority at the South African Reserve Bank. He's a former CFO of Sandton Holdings. He's a qualified chartered accountant and also got an advanced management and leadership program qualification from Oxford University. Please, can we give him a big round of applause?
Thanks for having me here today, Mark, Pierre, and Nevellan. It's indeed quite a interesting audience that we have today, especially since 5% of you are insolvent, according to the drone. I think that to start, in terms of Pierre's analogy of the VIX index, the VIX I recall growing up in Chatsworth was in a blue bottle with a green top. And my mum used to use it for everything from a broken hand to the flu that we all have. And I can tell you on our family chat, she's insisting we all take VIX over this time of epidemics as being the best cure for this. So we stay in a time of uncertainty and a time of contradictions, a time of global pandemics, a time when there's bad news and when there's good news, a time when it's just been announced that the Brazilian Prime Minister has been cited as having a confirmed case of the coronavirus. But on the other hand, he was exposed to President Trump a week ago at Mar-a-Lago. So that's something that CNN published today. We stay in a time of market volatility and uncertainty. We are in a time of audit sector trust issues. When I did articles, I recall we had hair requirements. And I'm certain that the hair that Nevellan brought here today and that star would not have passed the times when I did my articles. We stay in a time of trade wars, when wars are not about actually armaments, but wars could be about biological and could be about trade. And how do trade wars work? Two countries go to war using economics, using trade, what cuts to the very heart of the economy without firing a bullet. Today, the JSE suffered its worst crash since 1997, I heard one of the speakers say. We're in a time when we're in a beautiful building, the tallest building in Africa today, but at the same time, Sandton has 460,000 square meters of lettable space available. We're in a time of volatility, market crashes, bubbles, economic downturns, and these are certain to happen regardless of when we are or how we are. The question is, what happens when these happen? How do financial systems react that underpin the economies in which these events happen? The South African Reserve Bank, and together with the Prudential Authority, has the explicit mandate to maintain and enhance financial stability. Tonight, I will speak on two matters specifically: an overview of the Prudential Authority and the Twin Peaks model, and understanding forward-looking supervision by the Prudential Authority. Before starting, I think it's almost an operational risk to know the amount of bank CEOs and CFOs that are here today, that are present, because if something has to happen to this building, there will be a systemic issue. In terms of the Financial Sector Regulation Act 9 of 2017, that established the Prudential Authority and the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. The job of the Prudential Authority and the objective is to promote and enhance safety and soundness of financial institutions that provide products and securities, services, and market infrastructure. We protect customers against the risk that financial institutions fail to meet their obligations. The Financial Services Conduct Authority's objective is to enhance and support the efficiency and integrity of markets, to protect customers, promoting fair treatment, providing financial education, promoting financial literacy, and the ability of customers to make sound financial decisions. The Prudential Authority is now comprised of CFI supervision, bank supervision, insurance supervision, and FMI supervision. I'm also very fortunate to have some of my colleagues from the Prudential Authority here, Mr. Johan Kirtley, who's a divisional head responsible for conglomerate supervision, Ms. Lebogang Shabalala, who's responsible for member-based organizations as a divisional head, Mr. Emmanuel Molelwa, who's a manager in our team, Mr. Zippo Duze, Mr. Manoj Hira, Seshni Moodley, Mr. Malik Noordin, and Andrew Klulo. These are the team that form an integral part of the Prudential Authority supervision team that overlooks banking, insurance, and CFIs. As part of the PA's supervisory framework, we use three distinct areas: our regulatory framework, we do environmental scanning, and quality assurance. As part of quality assurance, auditors play an important role in this part of quality assurance. In terms of forward-looking supervision, there is a quote by an author that was well loved by Steve Jobs, and his name was Shunryu Suzuki. And he wrote the book in 1970 called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. In the book, he said, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the experts, there are few. So what this means is that as supervisors, we tend to assume nothing. We try as far as possible to use what has happened in the past to try to predict the future, to prevent the future from happening where there are crises and which could result in prejudice to depositors and client funds. In a simple term that many of you may know, the question is in snooker, where does the white ball land? Not actually what ball you hit now. In chess, what is your opponent's move? And very applicable for today with JP Duminy here, it's not whether you put the slip fielder after the ball has gone through the slips, but whether you put the slip fielder in there before the batsman nicks the ball to go into the slips, so that you can get him out. So as part of forward-looking supervisions, we need to look beyond the condition of an institution at a point in time to tell how well the institution can respond to the changing market conditions given its particular risk profile. This approach seeks to identify and correct weaknesses in conditions or practices before they impact an institution's financial condition. It's preemptive. What is the next move? Where will the bank move next? And is that a move that is desirable? If it is not a desirable move, how do we block it? In terms of our supervisory framework, there are three supervisory principles: preemptive and forward-looking supervision, which is time-use supervisory interventions; outcomes-focused, where we look at substance over form of the supervisory process; and risk-based approach, which is not a new concept. And the FSRA, which is the Financial Sector Regulation Act, seeks to enhance and harmonize respective regulatory and supervisory approaches. Implementing a risk-based approach is to focus supervisory resources in areas that, in the assessment by the supervisor or the Prudential Authority or the Financial Services Conduct Authority in this case, pose the greatest risk to the achievement of our prudential objectives. The framework provides a structured and systematic approach to implementing the PA's prudential requirements, provides guidance to prudential supervisors, and sets a baseline level of supervisory activity, the basis for determining the most effective and efficient allocation of prudential activities and resources. Forward-looking or preemptive anticipate and respond to risks that may emerge within a financial institution, within the industry in which the institution conducts its business, and within the broader financial system. An analogy that's used by Deputy Governor Naidu is that we are not policemen, rather firemen. We make sure that the buildings actually continuously service their fire extinguishers, the fire exits are clear, amongst others. Those type of items are the stuff we look at. We gain comfort that the fire wardens are fit and proper, no pun intended. We make sure that the owners of the building are committed to fire safety. And from a resolution point of view, which means that if the institution goes under, that in the event of a fire, the building is adequately insured and the insurance conditions are not onerous. A holistic view of the supervised institution is used to guide supervisory decisions. Banks often say to us, but you approved this for Bank X and you didn't approve that for us. Why didn't you do it for us? A holistic environment and a control environment scanning means that the risk environments and the control environments of the different banks are not the same, and they point to different decisions which banks are often not privy to. The supervision of behavior and culture is a new topic that is being examined currently. And as part of the supervision of behavior and culture, a focus area by the Dutch National Bank is the use of psychologists and anthropologists to assist frontline supervision teams as part of their roles. So in terms of what Monica was saying regarding being an analog chartered accountant, the frontline supervisors are no longer chartered accountants or lawyers or those type of individuals. Rather, they are anthropologists and psychologists, because they try to predict exactly what this means when someone tells you that. What are they really saying? I see that I have 27 seconds left, but so in terms of the characteristics of failure, and I think it's important to spend some time on this. A study by Charles Lee of Stanford Graduate School of Business and Yunro Wang from the University of China says that in terms of failure of financial institutions, the volatility and diversification of each bank's loan portfolio is very crucial. So monoline bank portfolios tend to behave in a particular manner which is not good for times of stress. Increased volatility and less diversification across loan categories equal a greater risk of being blindsided by surging default rates in economic downturns. In 2008, banks and regulators were shocked that surging defaults in subprime mortgages could end up crippling the entire financial system. At one point during the 2008 crisis, even the biggest corporations could not raise funding for more than 24 hours at a time. I think Monica would remember that from the Straits Times. And 2008 sounds like it's a long time ago. However, it's just 12 years ago. And many of you may not realize this given the focus of the South African national rating at this stage. In terms of in 2008, my understanding is that Moody's at that time had rated South Africa as just at A or just below A. And that's 12 years later, and today we're talking about potentially getting into junk territory. So there are two areas of focus. There's the volatility in default rates between quarters and years, the correlation between portfolios. So within a bank or across the sector, what spikes happen in unison? What happens when motor vehicle impairments go up? How does that affect loan portfolios in a home loan portfolio? What happens when big sectors experience stress, such as the mining sector? How does that impact unsecured lending? Because mine workers are now no longer going to be retrenched. How is the potential retrenchment at organizations such as SAA going to impact the financial sector? Where are those people borrowing? So understanding those linkages are key as part of the supervisor's role. Silver State Bank in 2008, which is a large bank in the US, and I'll tell you the numbers now, was well capitalized, but 83% of the loans that it had issued were made to the construction and non-residential real estate. If non-residential real estate default rates jumped, construction follows suit. It ended up costing the Federal Deposit Insurance Scheme between 400 and 500 million US dollars to bring Silver State Bank out of where it was. The study shows that some, and the key word is some, banks may need up to 3 times more capital than regulations suggest. And this is not a PA policy though, but this is what what the study shows. A PhD study by Roy Haverman from National Treasury, Lessons Learned from South African Bank Failures, show that it's seldom about capital, but always about liquidity that results in banks failing. In terms of our supervisory focus areas for the next year, at the top of the agenda, and particularly for the areas that are not necessarily within the conglomerates, but in terms of the foreign branches and the smaller banks, is the focus on direct. Oh, the Wi-Fi is back on now. Leonardo legacy is available. A focus on Directive 4/2018, and Directive 4/2018 talks about corporate governance within banks, and it speaks about how you try to ensure various controls are in place to ensure an independent board. And key for us as one of the lines of defense is an independent board. We have granted concessions to well-governed, well-run, capitalized and liquid banks in terms of Directive 4/2018, and this is well publicized. A key concern is the decreasing profitability and the increasing impairments. We've seen the results of the banks recently. This is a key focus area. In the times of economic downturn, this is an area that we will be looking at. Over these times, auditor independence and quality audits remain a key aspect for us to focus on. When we look at auditors, we need to ensure that the numbers that we are seeing that come out of the statutory audit, which then speak into the regulatory audit numbers and the BA returns that come out, are of a high quality. Risk data aggregation and risk reporting compliance, which speaks to having systems that are well run and single source of data. It's actually a really intense directive, but compliance with that is very important for us. And then anti-money laundering and the combating of financing of terrorism is always key. And you would have seen that the Prudential Authority and the South African Reserve Bank have sanctioned a few banks recently. This remains a key area for us to focus on. In conclusion, forward-looking information is fundamental to providing supervisors with a rich source of information that will allow us to identify early warning signals and intervene earlier and more effectively. Weaknesses in banks tend to grow over time and do not appear in isolation. The supervisor's challenge is to identify weaknesses before they become irreparable and to deal with a range of problems. Early remediation indicators are typically based on changes in regulatory capital and liquidity levels, stress test results, risk management weaknesses, and market indicators. In addition to monitoring early warning indicators, supervisors are expected to be experienced, able, and willing to focus on the bigger picture, to come to judgments that are forward-looking, and to anticipate risks that affect the safety and soundness of institutions. When we had the MC speak earlier about Steve Jobs, and then I saw Pierre try to cover that up about breaking the rules and stuff. We do not really support the idea of breaking of rules as the Prudential Authority. So just as a caution, the rules and the regulations and the Banks Act, the Financial Services Regulation Act, Financial Sector Regulation Act are there to be followed. They're a key part of our supervision. But at the same time, you need banks to be innovative and look at ways of cost cutting. And firms like BDO and other tech firms are looking at ways of simplifying processes, of simplifying back office processes that were large and cumbersome over time. As I mentioned, the drain on profitability means that banks are focusing on cost cutting and using technology as a key enabler to remove burdensome costs is a focus area. So before finally concluding, how do we know when an auditor or when a regulator does a good job? The answer, and I think I found the answer by speaking to my daughter. So when I asked her, so what do you think of this coronavirus thing? I take her to school every morning. And she says, Ugh. So I said, what do you mean? She said, Ugh. So when a regulator does a good job and when an auditor does a good job, it's Ugh. We don't know they're there. But when a regulator does a bad job, you get a failed institution. When an auditor does a bad job, there's stuff that's not picked up. When an IT consultant does a bad job, you find out your computer's not working. So it's sort of a thankless job that auditors, regulators, these type of back office functions are. So you'd find that with services like an audit and a quality audit, you probably get the same piece of paper every year, but you pay a bit more for it, to say that your financial statements are now well audited and they materially present the financial position of the entity. But that doesn't really matter, because as a depositor, it's, my money is fine, you know? But when something goes wrong, that's really when the problem is. And that's what the role of the supervisor is, that's what the role of the auditor is, that's what the role of the internal auditor is to prevent these failures. So you'd probably never hear about the Prudential Authority if we do our job well. But if we do our job badly, there may be instances where institutions fail. It's not always because of a poor supervisor, or it's not always because of a poor regulator or a poor auditor. Sometimes institutions fail because their business models don't justify staying around. Their business models are old and they're not applicable for the current time. But by and large, if we do our job well, institutions will be sound. If auditors do their job well, we understand that we get information that helps us make decisions on which we can then act. So in terms of auditing and bank compliance and stuff, there's a song by Peter Tosh from 1977 which explains how when I say we, how potentially, let's say potentially, because I don't want to say the PA thinks this, how potentially banks think about compliance. And banks generally want to comply. But Peter Tosh said in Equal Rights in 1977, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. So that's an important way of looking at it, because everyone says we want to be compliant, but are you being compliant, and how are you being compliant? That's from 1977. And then in 1988, Michael Jackson said, I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. No message could have been any clearer. If you want to make, and this is my songwriting, if you want to make the financial world a safer place. Take a look at yourself and then make that change. So in conclusion, thank you for inviting me and congratulations on your launch, Mark, Pierre, Nevellan. I understand Pierre, when he met with us last week, he mentioned that he was appointed to the Global BDO Financial Services panel. So of a big firm, that's quite a big accomplishment. On the tech side, a lot of this is new, and I think it's something that we will explore, and banks are going to change with this, so is the rest of the financial sector. John Martin brings a wealth of experience on the regulatory and capital side, having a deep understanding of regulations, capital liquidity, the current regulations, how the regulations have changed. Kevin and his specialist valuation team, and I've specifically worked with Zach Nyandeni, who I've worked long hours with previously, are a strong team on the valuation side. Michelle de Oliveira, who we've worked with on internal audit assignments at certain banks from the PA side. Auditors play an important role in allowing the PA to discharge its responsibility. It's a very tough job with huge responsibility on your shoulders. Beyond the nice building and the party and the event and the cocktails and stuff, it's a tough environment for auditors to work in now. We, as the Prudential Authority, place significant pressure on auditors. Banks and companies place significant pressure on auditors. I understand that Pierre has invited the spouses and family members of the key individuals, and these individuals play a key role in allowing their partners and their family members to discharge their responsibilities. So I wish you all well, and congratulations on the launch of your financial services division. Thank you.
There's a little board right in front of us, and in big red letters it's got the countdown, but then it's got another little line in red and white that flashes at you, and it says your time is up, your time is up. How long now is that flashing at you, Lashendran? Please can we give Lashendran Pratha another big round of applause from the South African Reserve Bank. He also just made it very clear for all of us, especially myself, where my most contact when it comes to financial services is going to a bank and making sure that I can take a loan. We understand that you are actually the barrier cream. You are our VIC. So thank you very much for the good work that you do. Finally, it's time now to, before we get our guest speaker, JP Duminy, up on stage, and there will be a Q&A with our guest speaker when we're done. So do we have any cricket fans here? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, great. So you've got your questions for JP Duminy. After he's done his presentation, we're going to open up the floor and you guys can ask a couple of those questions. We heard from Pierre Jacobs a little earlier on about just how ambitious this new business at BDO actually is. Next year, they want to have 200 professionals working with them, and then by 2022, 340. And they are aiming to go even bigger and unapologetically challenge the Big Four audit firms here in the country. Somebody that knows a thing or two about team and about what it takes to be part of a winning team is JP Duminy. He's our guest speaker for this evening. He's a man that was the leading T20 run scorer in 2013. He played 81 in the format, and he was the first to 1,500 runs. He played across all formats. The highest score in tests was 166, and he was part of that magical summer back in 2008 2009, where South Africa were the #1 test team in the world, as well as the #1 ODI team in the world. And that's when I think the public really got to understand this concept that we all now hold very close to our hearts, and every time the Proteas go out to play, we remind them of it, and that's #Protea Fire. So please can we give JP Duminy a big round of applause.
Man, what a great evening, isn't it? It's very different for me to be standing in front of a group of what do we call it? CEOs, CFOs, bankers, talking about cricket and the culture that we've created in the last 10 years. But I want to ask a question first. Has anybody bought cryptocurrency here? Hands up if you bought crypto. Oh, there's quite a few. So I've actually come to understand a little bit about cryptocurrency. I was actually going to ask Monica, has she left? Yeah, she just left, but I can't recall whether I've actually bought cryptocurrency at 3 o'clock in the morning on the toilet. So that must be something new where there's a added bonus in terms of what you can achieve out of the cryptocurrency. But man, what a great opportunity for me to share a little bit about Protea Fire and what it actually stands for. And it all originated a decade ago, where 2010 we realized we were actually having a bit of introspection of ourselves as cricket players. I was very young, obviously. I was a 24-year-old and fairly new into the Protea's environment. But if we think of ourselves as Protea players, the thought that came to mind was we were very self-observed, very self-obsessed in many ways. And I think the culture that we lived in at that point in time, and maybe a lot of you can relate in the business sense, is that we thought a lot about ourselves. We didn't think about other people. We didn't think about serving others. And I think it was the climate of our country at that point in time that allowed us to have this kind of thinking. And we needed to relook at ourselves in terms of where we were going as a team. And we had this camp in 2010. And a few people were invited to speak to us about the history of our country. Bob Skinstad was one that spoke a little bit about the sport in our country, and the anti-apartheid activist Ahmed Kathrada actually came to speak to us and address us as well. And man, what a story that man has. Having spent quite a bit of time in prison for pretty much the work that he did. And the most amazing thing about that was then understanding the history of our country. And here we were standing at pretty much a tipping point in our lives as cricketers, as a cricketing fraternity, and kind of realizing, where do we want to go? And that was kind of the birthplace of Protea Fire. And we kind of came up with this concept of Protea Fire and what it meant. So for those of you who don't know, or some of you do know, the Protea flower has quite a few significant things about it. And one of the main things that we took out of it was the resilience factor. And the reason for the resilience factor, if you think about a felt fire, the Protea flower is the first one to regenerate. And that's something that we took on board, and we thought, well, if we want to be somebody or a team that's going to compete at the national level, we're going to need to understand certain principles and values that we are going to align ourselves with. And resilience was one. There was a couple of others, but I wanted to share that one with you guys. And this is where it started. So we had this idea that we now are representing something bigger than ourselves. And I think all of you can kind of relate to that in some way or another, because you're sitting here working for some of the major banks, some of the major firms in our country, but there's an idea that you buy into. There's an idea or an understanding rather that you are operating in a space that is something far bigger than you can imagine. And this is where we originated from. We left that camp with a true sense of understanding that we are playing for something bigger than ourselves. So Graham Smith was the leader of this. Two guys by the name of Jeremy Snape and Owen Eastwood. They were the culture catalyst that kind of formulated this idea that we had. So we experienced some amazing highs, some hectic lows. And the thing about the lows was we were going to be tested in our resolve now about who are we? What do we actually stand for? And this is where we were tested. In 2012, we had an opportunity now to become the #1 test team and gain the #1 test mace. And I'll never forget the series. It was a remarkable series. But one of the most significant things about that series was the preparation period for that series. It was something very uniquely different to any other team that has ever done in the cricketing fraternity. We went to Switzerland. We had call it a boot camp in Switzerland. And I don't know if you guys have heard about a guy by the name of Mike Horn. He's actually a South African guy. And he took us through our paces in Switzerland, where we climbed the Alps, we cycled up massive hills, and that was our preparation period. We had no cricket balls inside, we had no cricket equipment inside. I mean, it was probably -3 degrees. I mean, we were never going to be practicing cricket. But we spent 4 days in Switzerland preparing for one of the biggest test match series that we're going to face in our cricketing lifetime. And I remember coming into the UK, and there was articles written about how, you know, we coming to the shores of England unprepared, but we knew deep down that we were doing something significant that was going to bring us closer together. So we went through some tough ordeals together, that we understood each other better, we understood each other's breaking points, we understood that it doesn't matter how it looks, it's actually about getting the job done. Now I remember a story of Hashim Amla. I'm sure everybody knows where Hashim Amla is, and we were walking up this mountain. So we were roped in together. It was quite a challenging walk, but while we were roped in, is at any given time, the snow could actually give in. And if anybody fell through the crevice, obviously everybody's attached. So we will kind of save him. And it was quite a strenuous walk up the hill, digging through snow. And I remember clearly myself, I was second last, and Hashim Amla was last. And the two of us, we were probably the unfittest guys in the team. And we were literally walking like that, getting them to kind of slip us across the snow. And that was what we experienced. But the takeaway was that it didn't matter about how it looked. It was about getting the job done. And we get into the UK. And again, all these articles are written about us, but we stick together. The first day of the first test, 265 for 3, England. Again, writing us off completely. From that day, we never looked back. We came together after day 1. Fortunately, we won the test series 2-0, and we gained the #1 test match mace. You know, and then the interesting thing about why I was asked to speak today was sharing some experiences about a winning culture, sharing experiences about what does culture mean to me. For me, culture is a way of thinking that transcends into a way of behaving. And we needed to live this. Through this change of mindset and playing for something bigger than ourselves really revolutionized us as a cricket team, but has also changed me as a person and taught me valuable skills and lessons in life. It's taught me what does it mean to be a role model. It's taught me the impact sport has on a nation. It's taught me to live from a place of victory. As business leaders here tonight, I have no doubt all of you have fundamental things that you drive as a culture of your business, and we've heard many examples of it tonight. There are certain non-negotiable values that you want to see lived on a day-to-day basis. Are you leaders waking up in the morning excited, driven to come to work because they know they are operating at a level that is beyond them? Do they realize the privilege being part of something bigger than themselves? Being able to influence people in a positive way. I came across the stories. So obviously me done playing now, I'm trying to, I guess, revolutionize myself into something different. And I've been reading a few books. One of the books that I'm currently reading is Taking People With You. It is by David Novak. Some of you might have heard of him, the former CEO of Yum. But the story goes like this. He was the head of operations many years ago for PepsiCo. And part of his job was that he needed to travel around the country and obviously have meetings with some of his staff and make sure that everything is in place. And on this day, he had a meeting with some of his staff. I can't remember the city's name, but he asked, how are things going? And somebody shouted out saying, Bob will know. And then somebody else shouted as well, yeah, Bob has taught me everything. And to his demise, he was thinking, well, if he's going to look at Bob, he's going to think, well, Bob is going to have this massive smile on his face out of the joy that everybody's referring to him as the one guy that knows everything. And he looks at Bob, and there's tears running down his face. And the reason why there was tears running down his face, Bob was working at this company for 40 years. And he was in the last few weeks of his time before he retired. And nobody had told him what they thought about him. And I thought this was quite a remarkable story it definitely impacted me, and it was quite a remarkable story because he took it upon himself to make sure as he moved forward in the company that nobody in that company will go forward thinking that they are not appreciated. And for me, that is culture. That is a way of thinking. That is a way of understanding that everybody unites together to achieve a common goal. So if you think about that's the last 5 years of my experience of the national team, we look to the last 5 years and where we're going now. And no doubt the leadership has shifted a little bit. The leadership has changed. Some other guys have taken on board as captains and coaches. But here's where I think we are at the moment. I think we're again at that tipping point. Yes, we've had some good success now against Australia. But I think where we're at as a cricketing fraternity, we need to understand the importance of culture. We need to understand the importance of being able to be in an environment where you go and you serve your colleague, you serve your teammate. We live in a country where we are so desperate and hungry for leaders that are going to serve us as the people of this country. And that's such an exciting place to be as a country, but as leaders, are we going to step up? And I think that is the fundamental things that drive me at this point in time. Because if you think about culture, I think this is where my passion lies. I think about that I want to encourage people to operate at a level that is beyond themselves. To play at a level that is beyond themselves. To understand what it means to represent 60 million people. To understand what it means to represent all of you in this room. And it's been an astonishing journey over 15 years where I've had the great privilege of playing for my country. And here we are now at the brink of BDO. In the financial services sector, we have operated for the last year. And it didn't matter who I spoke to at BDO before we came into this wall. They were all so excited by the fact that they've been so successful in this first year. But what is going to sustain it? What is going to sustain any of your businesses is the fact that you know that you need the next person next to you to be successful. And I just want to leave you with that thought, because the understanding that when you're under pressure, when things aren't going well, that's when one's default comes out. And what is your default going to be? Are you going to be able to share vulnerably with your colleagues? Are you going to be able to share vulnerably with your wife, your husband? I believe this is where the true authenticity of us as people comes out. When we are under pressure, when we needed to perform, but understanding that the performance is not who we are. It's only a byproduct of actually who we are inside. You know, I've had the huge privilege of having a foundation for the last 5 years. And we've had amazing success stories over this last 5 years. We operate in Mitchell's Plain in Cape Town. And if you think of Mitchell's Plain, it's a massive community. You're looking at plus minus 1 million people. 54 primary schools. We operate in the primary school sector. And to date, we've managed to get 38 out of the 54 primary schools playing cricket. But one of the fundamental things, whenever I speak to any of these kids, we deal with over 2,000 kids a week. One of the fundamental things that I share with them is that there's a champion inside all of us. That we were born with this champion mentality inside of us, and sometimes we just need a helping hand to bring that out. And that is my encouragement to all of you guys here. If you are in leadership positions, don't be afraid to understand that somebody might not be performing, yes, but sometimes they just need a helping hand to bring out that champion mentality that they definitely possess. I like to end off this way in saying, how do you change the world? You change the world by one act of random kindness at any given time. And how does that look? It can simply be by opening the door for somebody. It can simply be by picking up a piece of litter. That is our way of changing the world. And tonight, I just want to end off by saying thank you for the amazing opportunity to speak to all of you. You know, this is quite a daunting experience in many ways. And the fact that I was the last speaker, if you can think of cricketing terms, the toughest part is always sitting in the dugout waiting to bat. And thank you guys for allowing me to do that. But thank you very much for tonight. Thank you guys.
If you, over the years, if with all of the coaches that you've had and, you know, with the journey that your life has taken, what would you say has been the most important lesson that you felt when it comes to teamwork?
The most important lesson for me has been understanding that what we do as cricketers is far beyond ourselves. And it's taken me a long time to understand what that, thank you, what that means. Are we sitting?
I suppose so, yeah. Take a seat.
It's taken me a long time to understand what that actually means. And I made mention earlier about understanding what does it mean to be a role model, understanding what does it mean to represent 60 million people. That is a huge responsibility. And as sportsmen on a whole, not only just in cricket,
yeah,
I think we don't particularly digest that very well. We honestly, as sportsmen, we have the potential to change minds and hearts of people just through literally what we do. And you know, the fact that I'm done playing now, that is what drives me, is to share the experiences that I've had with the next generation, to help them understand that if and when you get the opportunity, make sure you make it count, but also that you give back to those that are coming after you.
So just an update, the Proteas were supposed to play against India in their first ODI. They've got a 3-match series. It was in Dharamsala, but actually not a ball was bowled because it was completely rained out. And there's news just in from India that the next 2 ODIs are actually going to be played at an empty stadium because of the coronavirus outbreak. And it's now been declared a pandemic. So the next time that the Proteas get onto the field against India, and I wonder if that's going to help. Do you think it's going to help the Proteas cause in India with no fans in the stadium for the next 2 ODIs?
I'm not sure whether it's going to help. I think it's going to be a little bit of an anticlimax in a way, because I think one of the biggest joys of playing in India is the crowd. Even though they mostly against you, but just the experience of it is outstanding. And the worry, I guess, from a Indian point of view is that the IPL is meant to start in about 3 weeks' time. So I think if they're going this route, that means the IPL is probably going to have to go the same route as well.
How many times going out and over your cricket playing career did you hear the question, when are we going to win a World Cup?
Oh man, so many times. And you know, one of the proudest moments that I had, particularly in this last World Cup, was I went to do a press conference after we had got to a position where we couldn't qualify anymore. And I was walking up the stairs, and a friend of mine told me, back home in South Africa at the time, he said, you know what's needed to be said? Actually, sorry. to the South African public. And I did that. I stood in the press conference and I said, I just want to say to the South African public that we apologize for the performance that we put in. And I've never felt more loved from South Africa since then. But that was genuinely from the heart, and whenever I get an opportunity to talk, you speak to different people. Yeah. And I actually want to say it again. We really take it on board that was a well below par performance from us. Sure. We went there very expectant of ourselves. And I still believe we have the capacity to do it. And hopefully this is something that we can build to in 2023.
Well, thank you very much for an honest answer. We have actually got a question from the crowd.
On your test debut in the WACA, you probably remember what you scored and what that match was like for you. Do you maybe just want to take us through that second innings chasing the score that you did?
Yeah, so just for those who don't know, that was 2008. That was the first test at Perth against Australia. So that was the famous tour that you were speaking about. We had not gone to Australia before then and beaten Australia. And the thing that I was thinking going out, I was obviously very nervous because the first innings I got bounced out by Mitchell Johnson. He took 8 wickets in that first innings. He was bowling the speed of light. And it was tough to see at times, to be honest. And the beauty that I experienced there was I felt like I was batting with a friend of mine. Because I had grown up with A.B. de Villiers, played with him through all the junior levels, played against him probably more at the junior levels. But we kind of came into the team at a similar time. And we kind of just encouraged one another as best as we could. Because we knew it was two young pups, 24 years old, kind of feeling like we had the world on our shoulders trying to get over the line for our team. Graham, Jacques, Neil McKenzie, Hashim Amla kind of got us to that point of needing 100 runs to win. And yeah, we just kind of worked together in a partnership. I remember AB scoring 100 as well. And what a debut it was for me, something that I'll never forget. Being able to score the winning runs and to end up on 50 not out on debut was marvelous.
JP, so we know there's a lot of talks about AB joining the squad again. What's your thoughts around that?
Look, to be honest with you, I don't know the full story and picture of that. There's obviously a lot of hearsay and a lot of things being said in the media. I think the important thing is to realize for me, is he really wanting to do it? If so, then there's going to need to be a process that he needs to go through. What I mean by that is he's probably going to have to play a few domestic games or play a few games for South Africa leading into that World Cup, kind of needing to prove himself. I think that's the only fair way to do it. He's Mr. 360. He can walk into any team. But I think just from the integrity part of it, I think he will need to go through that process. And I think knowing him, if he really wants to do it, he will do it. So I'm sure if it's going to happen, we will have to see it. I think there's a tour of the West Indies in June, July. That's probably going to be the time where you're going to see him come or not play.
I think we've got time for one more question.
JP, I just want to say, you've mentioned, I think, 2 or 3 times that you're done playing. And now, you're speaking, you're running your foundation. What sort of advice do you have for the people that are here, young and older, in terms of just changing your career path or your focus in life? Maybe you thought you were going to play until you were 47, but now you're 36, I think, by my calculations. And now you're speaking, you're running a foundation, you're reading lots of books. It sounds like you're going to write one. What's your advice to people, just not to be as afraid, for a big change?
So here's the interesting thing about that question. Transition is never easy. And I kind of learned the hard way in a way. I felt like I prepared myself for it. I'm talking mentally. But, when you're operating at a certain level for so many years, I mean, I played professional cricket for 20 years. And I've spoken to many people about the transition and what it feels like and what can you do to prepare yourself for it. And I went through a few things and did a few things, but believe me, it never prepared me for what I was about to face, because I kind of felt like I lost my purpose in life. Because when you're playing for South Africa, you're always knowing and feeling like there's a higher calling to your life. You're representing, as I said, 60 million people. And I needed to step out now and find myself in a different platform of where I'm going to operate in. So my advice would be, and it's a cliche in many ways, surround yourself with the right people. I honestly got through this transitional period because of people that encouraged me, that drove me, that were there for me through the dark days. And when you kind of see that light again, they're there for you again. And they're just with you on the journey. And that has truly gotten me through this. And, you know, to be able to be in a position now to give back and, as you said, the foundation, but also just to speak to people and share my story, share my experiences, has been a huge privilege for me.
JP, thank you very much. I think that's one thing that I mentioned a little early on in the evening. It really feels as if there's been a lot of honest exchange this evening from all of our speakers, and that's how we come to the end of this evening. Thank you to everybody that has been here, all of our special guests, the BDO family, the friends, those that will be joining the BDO family, to JP Duminy, to Mark, to Pierre, to Lance, to Nevellan, to our guest speakers, including Lushendran. Thank you to each and every single one of you. Do get home safely. And just a reminder about your parking tickets to get them validated at the hotel desk, which is opposite the bar, which are all waiting for you. Thank you very much and get home safely.